Hello and most welcome to a special episode of the Heidegger series, and this is going to be the second interview with Jan Eyskens from the University of Antwerp.
Well, not related to the university. I had a PhD from the University of Antwerp and one of the University of Brussels. So
as well.
Two for the price of one.
Two for the price of one. And I will start the interview by trying to connect to the Heidegger series as well. And we discussed yesterday about priming. That has been mentioned before in context with something that in Swedish is called badning. Badning means prepare something so it will react in a certain way. This is how we use badning. Badning was first mentioned by Edward de Bono, the creativity guru from Malta, who sadly passed away last year. And what he means by that is you could put your mind, your setting into a certain mood, and by doing that you can create creativity, a sort of an energy of thinking. Jan, what do you think? Could you explicate a little bit about priming and also bring your own field of interest, the muscular and the neurological aspects, into the whole thing?
I'll try so.
Thank you.
This is an easy way to explain it. It's how I tell it my actions, since I don't have patience, because I lose my patience with my patients. I have actions, people who are active to change the way they move, the way they live, and so on. When there's someone knocking at the door or the bell is ringing, my dog reacts faster than I know that someone was at the door. So we have quite a 350 seconds delay on reality. So my dog loses less time in knowing what's going on. Second, if I want to take something, I already am doing it before knowing that I'm doing it. So the quality of the movement is sub and pre-conscious. And it's Libet, Benjamin Libet, who in Parkinson patients with their skulls open and a lot of wires, asked them just extend your wrist when you want. But tell me afterwards where a very small red dot that was rotating, when it was when you decided. And so they could measure that the movement started before they decided to do it. They were aware of the decision for doing it. And then, same experience, except that they said, think of going to do it. You think of going to do it, and then you do it. And then it was a bit different. Okay? Now, if there's some 350 milliseconds delay between, let's say, my consciousness and the facts that are going on in my system, there is a possibility to have a stop. And there's a famous Flemish choreographer, an artist, Jan FABRE, who showed it. I'm very sorry for telling it this way, but this is how it was called. What was his play? I think The Naked Body or something like that. So I'm the priest, which is not true, and you're the, let's say, the Spanish lady with the big boobies, okay? And the audience was at that side, and Jan FABRE made the priest do something like that. So he was well aware what free want was.
Yes.
He would have loved to, ta-dam, but he was able to stop him. Since there is a time delay that we can use to stop our, let's even say, CONATUS, what we are willing to do for whatever reason.
Ah, yes.
So there's no free will, there's free want. That means that all people have a habit. All dogs have habit, all animals have habit, all even bacteria have a habit. Now, if you're complaining of whatever, that means that you have a bad habit. that the parts of your body are not working well together with the whole, but at the same time, in parallel, the whole is not working in parallel with the parts. So your body must be at peace and not in pieces. And my body was called Body in Peace and not in Pieces.
Your book was called
Yes, my book
yes.
of 2007 was called Body in Peace and not in Pieces. And only if all these parts work together well, then we have a feeling of things are going well. If I put my finger in between the door, I'm having pain, I need a doctor, I need someone who will take my pain away. No, I need to open the door. So there is a difference between the complaint and the problem. And of course, we always think, I need to get rid of my complaint. Oh, that's true. If you have a broken leg, then I hope you'll be in surgery very fast and that the orthopedic surgeon will do whatever he's able to do. But suppose I was climbing for days here in the surroundings and my knee started to hurt, and then that's because I did something too much, not lagom, so it was too fast, too slow, whatever, not as it should be done in order to be it with the least of energy. Now, if you're having jerkiness of motion, and this is of the book of Dr. Travell and Dr. Simons, those who did start myofascial pain therapy, and one day Dr. Simons, who was trained as an astronaut and who had the world record of balloon height, he asked me take care because we don't understand jerkiness of motion, which is not being in a moving and behaving and functioning in a coordinated way. So if we're not doing it coordinated, how we can give a counter cue that will help us to do it differently, and it will only be accepted by the whole if it's cheaper. And to make it easy, I say that most of these patients with all their problems, they do whatever they're doing with double TVA. And now you have to tell maybe the listeners TVA if they understand it.
TVA is
the tax.
That is the extra they have to pay, and we call that in English it's probably called VAT or TVA.
Yes.
Swedish we call it moms or oms, depending which time period you're from, and this is the extra tax you have to pay for everything.
So if you do things in a coordinated way, I call it without these extra tax.
Without moms.
And this can, to make it easy, only be done if you use type 1 muscle cells first, because they're related to three-dimensional aspect of your body, and to do it gently, not fast, not if you need a lot of force. And if both systems, type 1 muscles and the type 2 muscle cells, don't work well together, then there's that jerkiness of movement. And patients will always be too fast. Now, language arrives too late in the brain to change the habit, because it already started before. Now, what can we do this now to change the next now, since it's always now, but the now always changes every few seconds, it's a new now. So how can we interfere in such a way that the next now will be cheaper than the habitual now? And well, there are a few tricks, and all these tricks are funded on priming, how to prime it to make it easier to. And it's very well known professor, and you'll understand why I'll tell you his name, Professor Theo Mulder of Groningen University, in his marvelous book, which is not translated into English, but that's another thing. He said if images weren't important, pornography wouldn't exist. So we have to imagine the future for the next now, And if this is something that helps us to do it in a cheaper way, well, nature will follow us.
Very well.
And images the right hemisphere, language the left. And if we do something that we like to do, this is the stream in our body. If it's against our will, it's I have to do it.
Yeah.
It's from left to right. So it seems that normally there should be, in chronic fatigue patients, for example, 10% of the population are left-handed, but we see less left-handers having fatigue as a problem. But if you're a left-hander and you're fatigued, you're in a very worse condition, and it's very difficult for you to change it, because for right-handers, and let me exaggerate, they're not used to make images, that's something novel, but to left-handed, right-brained people, they already used images, so wrong images. So how to replace the wrong image by a salutogenic image? That's not so easy. So it was John Appleton who came first with posture release imagery, and there's no problem with that, but it's not so easy to start with. And then afterwards I made the eye scans, so to scan with your eyes your body form before doing whatever, sitting or while sitting or standing and so on and so on, in parallel to the etudes. And so the way to move has to be learned, so it's an etude, a study. And there are etudes for dance, there are etudes for actors, there are etudes for music. So I made an etude for, let's make it easy, how to sit. And they relate to gravity. And once more, Dr. Simons, who was trained as an astronaut, he knew about it. He asked me how to deal with this problem. So the way we react to gravity, so if I let this, it didn't do anything. It came by itself. It was for free. So holding ourselves up comes with a cost.
Yeah.
And now the question is, what muscle type do we need to do it with the least expense? Type 1 muscle cells. And so they're not related to language. BAM! That's related to language. I'm going to give him a kick. Okay? And but you cannot choose to use your type 1 muscle cells. You have to learn it, and to learn it in parallel with feeling it, what is going on, and to see it in a different way. So it's kind of a novel way of movement, combination of the etudes, the eye scans, and that not only, let's say, once a week for, let's say, 1 hour, but in the time you're not with your whatever therapist, that's the most important one, because that's 99% of the time.
In action, in common day life, at
yes,
work,
to
at
do
school.
it in such a way, although others will say, how are you doing this right now? And of course there is a cultural connection, because today culture is more important in how you move than nature. We sit all day and we're supposed to walk through the desert most of the time. So I think that as soon as possible, already children have to learn how to move, how to sit, and not to sport and to do their best, because that's one more priming of the type 2 muscle cells.
Yeah.
And so that's about.
One thing it's absolutely interesting, and I think could be good for this channel as well, is one part in the discovery. And if I understand the whole thing correctly, the feature of astronauts took a significant part in the discovery. And let me just put my take on the whole thing. As I understand it, the astronauts could not follow their free want. Instead, they had to will themselves. For instance, if something fell, it would not fall. Still their eyes would go down, and then they have to force the eyes to stay. And that was an action of the will, not the want.
Yeah, so they had something in their hands. They felt that they didn't hold it anymore and they went down. But the pen stayed on the same place.
Yes.
And what I found very remarkable, if they asked them to draw a cube, eyes closed, the left-right dimensions were right, but not the up-down.
Okay.
So,
so weight comes in there
I
too.
think it's in one of my articles related to space, because it took me more than 10 years to understand what happened when there was no gravity and astronauts are tired and are having back pain. And here when we're tired and when we're having back pain, we want to lay down. So it's how we deal with gravity, in a good or in even a bad way. And so that learned me a lot. And then especially the phrase that gymnasts, and now I think about Perling.
Perling, yeah, the Swedish instructor of
Yeah.
gymnasts and also creator of a link system.
Yeah, and
here in
so
Sweden.
he had 4 kind of bodies. One was the military, and when you're a gymnast, you're not allowed to enter the school for being trained as an astronaut. And I was then convinced, because you had small bullets, stony parts in your inner ear, and so if your awareness comes from this input, then without the input being out of the you would throw up for the first days and weeks, because it would make you sick. And so they didn't want astronauts with their helms full of vomit.
Very interesting. I see a closely likeness to Heidegger here. One that is in between for understanding is James J. Gibson, because he speaks about affordances, and that means that something is for you, instead trying to get rid of the idea of existences that are just there without use. And if I find a snake somewhere, I just grab for something that is heavy enough, grabbable, to kill the snake or get rid of the snake. There is no existence before. That would create an extra universe, and that would mean that I force that universe on myself somehow. You do it directly. And Heidegger takes it one path stronger. He says even thinking is a type of affordance. Thoughts, intellectual ideas are affordances for us. We should use them in that way, instead of trying to look for their meanings, because having meanings is like being static. What does that mean? Tell me, question, and you never reach understanding.
There's a good example. There was a lady on television, and she was interviewed because her dog has never eaten meat. So he or she, I don't know, was brought up in a vegetarian way. And let's say after 5, 6, 7 minutes of the interview, they were bringing 2 balls and a dog. Now, just think, what ball did the dog go to? The one with meat, of course. And so that's a good example for affordances. He could afford him to eat the meat.
That is great. That is great.
It's now or never.
That's a very good metaphor there. Wow. Now there are similarities definitely here, and I also see how they try to reveal sort of will, that the want is what you need, what is internally you really want. This is what you're going to do as well, in a certain way, to a certain extent. It's like having a child who doesn't want to do something. You drag that child and it will not help you. You can't lift it up, it's going to be 10 times as heavy, because the system wants something else. And then comes the will, and it sort of have connection to the T2 and the N2, which are more of like demanding the body to do it.
And so, and you can find it on the site yesbody.be. So no body, yes body. .be, be your body. And there, and you can find the link to the Oath of Spinoza. And the oath of Spinoza has two corner facts, which is first the CONATUS, the drive to stay alive, but two is COTE, take care for not doing stupid things. Take care of others, take care of yourself. And so it's related to free will. And Spinoza was a monist, so not Declercq, the one who divided our system between mind and body. So monism, I think, will help at least people having a lot of functional problems. And so it's in parallel with the oath of Hippocrates, which is of course for physicians, for disease, but not for dysfunction, not for sickness, not for illness or sickness, only for disease, or at least to be used in parallel.
Ah, yes, yes. This is a very strict difference. And I will put up, with the help of Jan here, put up links to the different names also that were mentioned, Schemes for instance, and et al. And also links in the description to his website.
Okay.
And I thank you very much. Very clear, very eloquent. I really hope the video was grabbed, and say thank you very much for the help. Have a pleasant afternoon, and bye bye for now.
Tack så mycket.